My name is Bob Greenstreet. I am Professor and former Dean of Architecture and Urban Planning at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and former Director of Design and Planning for the City of Milwaukee. My co-author is Nabil Hamdi, Professor Emeritus at Oxford Brookes University and an international expert on housing and participatory design. Our paper today is an evaluation of public housing, or council housing as it's known in the United Kingdom, in the mid-century. And it is entitled, "Are Our Homes Still Fit for Heroes?" Now, this is a quote that comes from Lloyd George, Prime Minister of England, made after the First World War, when he pledged to build 500,000 council houses for returning soldiers. You would think with that interest and commitment to housing that it would have a powerful effect on the physical environment. In fact, by 1970s, it's estimated that a third of the population lived in public housing, and you would therefore think that the attention to design would be very high. In fact, there are some quite poor housing in many of the tracts around the United Kingdom, and there are, however, some great examples of good housing, particularly around the time of the 1950s to 70s. And our paper focuses on three of those estates that we liked very much at the time, and we wish to revisit to see if they were still fit for purpose and if there were lessons to learn for future designers. The three housing estates are all in the London area. One is called Lillington Gardens in Pimlico, designed by Darbourne and Dark. The second is entitled Adelaide Road, which is in Camden, designed by Nabil Hamdi using the shack prefabricated system that allows for internal flexibility decided by the residents for each unit. And the third was designed by Kate McIntosh, and it's a prominent hilltop development in East Dulwich in London. These were projects, as I said, that we really admired in much earlier times, and we were delighted to see in our investigations that they had all held up really well and still provided high quality accommodation with style, individuality, and dignity for their residents. There were certain key factors that we believe underlied the success of each of the three projects. The first were that they really didn't exhibit a marked stylistic ideology. They were all just thoughtful, well-conceived designs, and they were all built using high-quality materials, incorporating individualistic architectural details such as keystones, such as lintels or flagstones, with great outdoor spaces, balconies and porches, and well-designed front doors. All of the buildings eschewed simple monolithic blocks. They all had depth to their facades. They all had variegated roofing lines, which provided interest to the environment. And all of them were embellished with public spaces, gardens, landscaping, and even sculpture, which really kind of softened and complemented the buildings. Just as important as the design of these buildings were the ownership and occupation of them. They're all now a mix of public and private ownership, and we were impressed by the level of maintenance, the lack of graffiti, and the personal attention and ownership of the projects themselves. In one case, Camden, a resident without prompting came out to talk to us and remembered the name of the architect, who was in fact Nabil Hamdi. And he would have been the resident probably 8 years old at the time, and yet he could still remember the architects coming to meet with him and his parents and the thoughtful process of design that engaged them in their house. So this consistent quality of design, coupled with long-term care and commitment, and the pride exhibited by the residents and their respective local councils, was evident in all three projects. So what are the lessons that we can learn here? Well, looking for good housing, always engage talented, thoughtful architects who care passionately about creating good housing. And wherever possible, where they will challenge the conventions of standards designed to fit everybody in general, but nobody in particular. If they work with stakeholders, the architects will respect and accommodate differences and bring sometimes conflicting interests into convergence. This isn't just going to create better housing, it's also going to create the building of social capital of place and a sense of community that's going to engender a sense of belonging and care. Re-empowering communities both in design and management and exploration of new forms of partnership are important to avoid past stereotypes of public housing, and of course in demanding the highest quality design and best possible materials to create domestically scaled solutions that integrate into, rather than isolate from, their neighborhoods. Thank you for listening. If you'd like a copy of this paper, my email is bobg@uwm.edu.